The crystalline spires of the Galactic Peace Academy stretched toward the twin suns of Proxima Centauri, their surfaces refracting light in mesmerizing patterns. Sarah Chen adjusted her environment suit's gravity compensators as she walked beside her fellow human cadets, Marcus Rodriguez and Kaya Williams. Their footsteps echoed through halls designed for beings who primarily floated or glided. "Remember," Marcus whispered, his dark eyes scanning the towering architecture, "we're the first humans ever accepted into the Advanced Diplomatic Corps. Let's not make headlines for the wrong reasons." Sarah nodded, noting how the other species gave them a wide berth. Their reputation as Deathworlders preceded them, though she couldn't blame their caution. Earth's gravity alone was 3 times stronger than the Academy's standard, and their enhanced muscle density made them appear unnervingly solid to the predominantly ethereal or crystalline species around them. A shimmering figure materialized before them. Senior Diplomat Excelfar, their assigned mentor. The being's translucent form rippled with patterns of light that Sarah recognized as indicators of amusement. "Ah, my human cadets," Zelfar's thoughts resonated directly in their minds. "I have your first assignment. Tell me, how do you feel about impossible tasks?" Kaya stepped forward, her environment suit's sensors already analyzing the diplomat's light patterns. "We find that impossible is often just a matter of perspective, Senior Diplomat." "Excellent answer." Zelfar guided them to a gravity lift. "You've been assigned to study the Zarkax B3 dispute. The archives are in the high-gravity section. Most species avoid it, but for you—" The diplomat's lights flickered with what might have been a smile. The lift descended into the Academy's lower levels, where the gravity gradually increased. Sarah noticed their fellow cadets dropping off at various floors, until only the humans remained. At 3 times standard gravity, they reached their destination. "The archives," Zelfar announced, leading them into a vast chamber filled with crystal matrices storing countless diplomatic records. 10 years of failed negotiations. Perhaps fresh eyes will see what we have missed." Marcus approached one of the crystal matrices, his hand steady despite the increased gravity. 10 years. For one dispute. The Zarkax and Bi3 are ancient species, Zelfar explained. They consider a decade mere moments in negotiations. However, this dispute has become problematic. Resources are being wasted. Trade routes disrupted. Sarah activated her suit's interface, downloading the initial reports. An asteroid belt. All this over rocks in space. That asteroid belt marks the border between their territories. Zelfar's light patterns shifted to deeper blues. Both species claim exclusive rights. Neither will compromise. Our finest negotiators have tried every approach in the diplomatic archives. Kaya was already deep in the data, her fingers dancing across her holographic interface. "Senior Diplomat, these negotiation sessions, they last for months." Indeed, both species require extensive time to process new information and reach consensus. It is their way. Sarah exchanged glances with her teammates. On Earth, they had studied countless conflicts, from ancient territorial disputes to modern space lane negotiations. Something about this situation nagged at her tactical instincts. "Senior Diplomat," she ventured, "has anyone ever attempted to resolve this under time pressure?" Zelfar's form rippled with surprise. "Time pressure? That would be considered most inappropriate. Both species value careful, methodical deliberation." Marcus grinned. "Maybe that's exactly why this dispute has lasted so long. They're too careful, too deliberate." "Interesting theory." Zelfar's lights pulsed thoughtfully. "You have one standard rotation to review the archives. Tomorrow, you'll present your initial analysis to the Academy Board." After the diplomat departed, Kaya turned to her teammates. "Did anyone else notice this section's gravity?" Sarah nodded. "It's exactly Earth normal. They put all the difficult cases where only Deathworlders can comfortably study them." "Then let's show them what Deathworlders can do," Marcus said, reaching for another crystal matrix. "We've got work to do." The humans spent the next hours immersed in diplomatic records, their Earth-evolved minds processing information at speeds that would have shocked their more deliberate colleagues. Sometimes, Sarah reflected, being from a high-gravity death world had unexpected advantages. Little did they know, their first day of the Academy would soon lead to a solution that would reshape galactic diplomatic protocols forever. The Academy's research chamber hummed with the soft glow of holographic displays as Sarah Chen mapped the disputed asteroid belt for the 20th time. Her eyes, adapted to Earth's harsh sunlight, caught subtle variations in the projection that others might have missed. "Look at this," she called to her teammates, highlighting a series of seemingly random energy signatures. "These patterns remind me of the old Silk Road trading routes on Earth. They're not random. They're following some kind of natural flow." Marcus pulled up his own data set, correlating solar wind patterns with the energy readings. His environment suit's enhanced sensors picked up variations that standard equipment had overlooked. These asteroids aren't just sitting there. They're creating corridors, like rivers of space. That's not in any of the official reports, Kaya noted, her fingers dancing across her holographic interface. She had spent the last 3 hours translating Bathory atmospheric communications, their preferred method of recording information. Both species keep referring to resource rights, but neither has specified exactly what resources they're claiming. Sarah zoomed in on a particular section of the belt. The holographic asteroids spun slowly, their surfaces glinting with mineral deposits. These rocks are rich in rare earth elements, sure, but nothing worth fighting over for a decade. Both species have mining operations in other sectors with similar compositions. Marcus stepped back, his dark eyes narrowing as he studied the larger pattern. What if we're looking at this wrong? Earth history showed us that most conflicts aren't really about what people claim they're fighting over. "Pull up the trade route data," Sarah suggested, her mind racing. "Not the official ones. Show me the actual ship movements from the past 15 years. The hologram shifted, showing thousands of vessel trajectories in glowing lines. Kaya gasped. The paths between the asteroids, their natural acceleration corridors. Ships could save enormous amounts of fuel by using these routes. And look at the gravitational eddies, Marcus added, highlighting swirling patterns in the data. These would be perfect for B3 ships. Their gas-based technology could ride these currents like surfers on Earth's ocean waves. Sarah overlaid the Zarkax mining claims. The crystalline formations they're supposedly interested in, they're not mining them at all. They're using them as navigation markers for their own ships. Both species are lying, Kaya realized, pulling up more atmospheric records, or at least not telling the whole truth. They're not fighting over the asteroids themselves. They're fighting over the spaces between them. Sarah finished, her expression brightening with understanding. The Bathory want the gravitational currents for their gas ships, and the Zarkax want the stable markers for their crystalline vessels. Neither side has admitted what they really need because they think admitting their true interests would make them appear vulnerable, Marcus concluded. Classic Earth diplomatic scenario. Like the old Panama Canal negotiations, everyone claimed it was about territory, but it was really about shipping routes. Kaya was already running simulations. Look, if we map it this way, both species could use these corridors without interfering with each other. The gravitational eddies the Bathory need operate on a completely different level than the marker paths the Zarkax use. They could share the entire region, Sarah said, excitement building in her voice. Neither side would have to compromise because they're not even competing for the same thing. Marcus checked the time display on his suit. We have 2 hours before we present to the board. If we can prove this, we need to show them, Kaya said firmly. Not just tell them. These species process information differently than we do. They need to see the pattern themselves. Sarah began modifying the holographic display, her fingers flying over the controls. We'll build a 3-dimensional model showing both layers of activity. Make it impossible to miss the solution. And we'll need to prove it fast, Marcus added, already calculating orbital mechanics, before they can get bogged down in their usual deliberation cycles. The three humans worked with the focused intensity their species was famous for, their Earth-evolved brains processing multiple scenarios simultaneously. Above them, the holographic asteroids spun in their eternal dance, finally revealing their true significance to those who knew how to look. The three human cadets stood before the Academy's main simulation chamber, their environment suits adjusted for the presentation ahead. Sarah's hands moved steadily over the control panel, making final adjustments to their three-dimensional model. Simulation integrity at 100%. The chamber's AI announced, ready for full environmental projection. Marcus checked the gravitational sensors one last time. We'll need to show them both species perspectives simultaneously. Can the system handle that level of detail? It has to, Sarah replied, inputting the final commands. Our whole presentation depends on them, seeing what we see. The chamber hummed to life, and the vast space transformed into a perfect replica of the disputed asteroid belt. Thousands of rocks hung suspended in the void, their surfaces glinting with mineral deposits and crystal formations. But it was what lay between them that mattered most. Kaya activated her section of the controls, and layers of data began to flow through the simulation. Gravitational currents appeared as shimmering rivers of light, weaving between the asteroids in complex patterns. There, she said, highlighting a particular series of currents. The Bay-3 ships can use these natural acceleration lanes to cut their journey times by 60%. No wonder they want control of this sector. Sarah nodded, adding another layer to the display. Crystal-clear navigation markers appeared, forming precise geometric patterns between the asteroids. And these are the markers the Zarkax need. Their crystalline ships use these points for exact spatial positioning. The beautiful part, Marcus added, manipulating the simulation to show both layers simultaneously, is how they never intersect. The gravitational currents flow around the marker points naturally. It's perfect synchronicity. They just couldn't see it before. The chamber door whispered open, and senior diplomat Selfar floated in, accompanied by representatives from both disputing species. The Bay-3 delegate appeared as a swirling column of iridescent gas, while the Zarkax representative's crystalline form refracted light in sharp geometric patterns. Cadets, Zelfar's thoughts resonated in their minds. You may begin. Sarah stepped forward, her voice clear and confident. Honorable delegates, we've discovered something remarkable about the disputed region. But rather than tell you, we'd like to show you. She gestured, and the simulation shifted. The view zoomed out, showing the entire asteroid belt from above. What you're seeing now is the traditional view of the sector. But watch what happens when we change our perspective. Marcus initiated the first transition, and the gravitational currents blazed to life. The Bay-3 delegates' gaseous form swirled with increased activity, their species equivalent of intense interest. These natural acceleration corridors, Kaya explained, form a perfect network for B-3 ships. They're stable, predictable, and self-sustaining. Before the delegates could fall into their usual pattern of lengthy deliberation, Sarah triggered the second layer. The crystalline navigation markers appeared, forming their precise geometric web. The Zarkax delegates' facets flickered rapidly, their sign of sudden understanding. The markers exist in perfect harmony with the gravitational currents, Marcus explained, highlighting key intersections. Neither system interferes with the other. In fact, they complement each other in ways we believe could benefit both species. The humans had practiced this moment carefully. As one, they activated the final stage of their simulation. The view pulled back further, revealing how the two systems, the flowing currents and the geometric markers, created a natural transportation network more efficient than anything either species had planned. You're not competing for the same resources, Sarah concluded. You're actually positioned to create the most advanced trade route in this sector of space. Together. The chamber fell silent. The Bay-3 and Zarkax delegates moved closer to the simulation, their alien forms expressing what the humans recognized as intense calculation and analysis. Zelfar's light patterns shifted to show surprise. This simulation, How long did it take you to discover this pattern? About 6 hours, Kaya answered honestly. Sometimes fresh eyes see things differently. The delegates began communicating in their native formats, swirling gas patterns and crystal resonances. The humans waited, knowing they had shown them something that couldn't be unseen. Sometimes, Sarah reflected, the best solutions were hiding in plain sight. You just had to be willing to look at them from a new angle. The Academy's alert system activated without warning, bathing the simulation chamber in crimson light. Marcus was the first to notice the incoming data stream, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to process the information before the others. Solar flare, he announced, fingers flying across his holographic interface. Massive one, heading straight for the disputed sector. Impact in 58 minutes. Sarah quickly overlaid the flare's trajectory onto their simulation. The wave of charged particles blazed an angry red path directly through the asteroid belt. This could destabilize the entire navigation network. Both the gravitational currents and the crystal markers will be affected. Kaya was already calculating the potential damage. The Bay3's gas ships would be particularly vulnerable. Those currents they rely on could become unpredictable for weeks. She turned to the delegates who had been discussing the simulation's implications. We need to evacuate any vessels in the sector immediately. The Zarkak's delegates' crystalline form vibrated with concern. Our standard procedures for such warnings require a minimum of 3 days of deliberation to ensure proper. There is no time for deliberation, Marcus interrupted, his voice firm but respectful. This flare is nearly twice the size of anything recorded in this system. We have less than an hour to act. The Bay3 delegate swirled in agitation. Impossible. Decisions of this magnitude cannot be rushed. The proper channels. Sarah stepped forward, enhancing the simulation to show the flare's exact composition. Honorable delegates, I understand your protocols. But right now, we need to focus on saving lives and preserving the very resources you've spent a decade negotiating over. Zelfar's form flickered with concern. The cadets are correct. This situation requires immediate action. We have a plan, Kaya announced, bringing up a new set of calculations, but we'll need both of your species to work together. Right now. The simulation shifted, showing a detailed evacuation route that utilized both the Bay3's gravitational currents and the Zarkak's crystal markers. Marcus highlighted key points along the path. If we combine your technologies, we can create safe corridors for all ships in the sector. The Zarkak's markers can stabilize the worst of the gravitational disruptions, while the Bay3 currents can help accelerate evacuation vessels past the danger zone. The delegates began their species equivalent of rapid discussion, their forms shifting and shimmering with unprecedented speed. Sarah checked the timer. 52 minutes remaining. Computer, she called out, broadcast emergency alerts to all vessels in the affected sector. Authorization. Cadet Chen. Emergency protocols. The Academy's AI responded immediately, sending out warnings in all relevant languages and formats. Marcus coordinated with the Zarkak ships, while Kaya linked their system to the Bay3 fleet control. 49 minutes, Marcus announced, tracking the first wave of evacuating ships. The delegates, perhaps for the first time in their species' histories, made a joint decision in less than 5 minutes. Their combined authorization codes flowed into the system, allowing the humans to implement their emergency plan. Sarah watched as the first ships began following their escape route, their movements precise thanks to the cooperation between the two species. The Zarkak's markers blazed brighter than ever, providing stable reference points, while the Bay3's managed currents helped push vessels clear of the danger zone. This is working, Kaya said, monitoring the evacuation's progress. The combination of your technologies is actually more effective than either alone. The delegates observed the operation with growing appreciation. Even Telfar's usually composed form showed signs of amazement at the speed and efficiency of the joint effort. 43 minutes until impact. Marcus updated them, his eyes never leaving the tactical display. At current evacuation rates, we'll clear the sector with 12 minutes to spare. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Sometimes it took a crisis to show people, regardless of their species, what they could accomplish together. As she watched the synchronized dance of ships fleeing the approaching solar flare, she couldn't help but think this might be the beginning of something much bigger than a simple evacuation. The real test, however, was still approaching at nearly the speed of light. The Academy's central meeting chamber had never hosted such an urgent session. Sarah checked the environmental controls one final time, ensuring both the crystalline Zarkax and gaseous By-3 delegates could attend comfortably. The solar flare's approaching energy signature blazed on every monitor. 38 minutes until impact, Marcus announced, adjusting the chamber's main holographic display. Their original simulation of the asteroid belt now included real-time data from the evacuation effort, showing ships streaming away from the danger zone. Kaya monitored the incoming vessel feeds, evacuation proceeding at 112% of projected speed. The combined navigation system is exceeding our initial calculations. The chamber's doors opened, admitting a larger delegation than expected. Behind the original representatives came their species' senior advisors, drawn by the unprecedented success of the emergency cooperation. The By-3 advisors formed a swirling cloud of multiple colors, while the Zarkax group created a harmonious crystalline lattice. Honorable delegates, Sarah began, her voice clear and steady. You've just witnessed something remarkable. Your combined technologies didn't just facilitate an evacuation. They created something entirely new. The main display shifted, showing the modified transportation network they'd developed for the emergency. Marcus highlighted specific intersections where By-3 currents and Zarkax markers worked in perfect synchronization. This crisis has proven what we discovered in our analysis, he explained. Your technologies don't conflict. They complement each other in ways nobody expected. The By-3 senior advisors' forum rippled with skepticism. While the emergency measures have proven effective, such rapid implementation goes against all established protocols. Sometimes, Kaya interjected softly, the greatest discoveries come from necessity. She brought up new data streams showing the efficiency ratings of the combined system. Look at these numbers. Ships using both your navigation methods are achieving speeds and precision that neither species could manage alone. The Zarkax advisors' crystalline forms vibrated in their version of intense discussion. Their lead representative stepped forward. The data is compelling, but our species requires time to properly analyze. A warning tone cut through the chamber. 30 minutes to impact, the Academy's AI announced. Sarah seized the moment. Honorable delegates, we understand your need for careful deliberation. But right now, you have an opportunity that may never come again. She gestured to the display showing the evacuating ships. You've already proven you can work together effectively. Why not build on that success? Marcus added a new layer to the simulation, showing potential trade routes using the combined navigation system. With both species' technologies working in harmony, you could create the most efficient transportation network in this sector of space. The disputed asteroid belt would become a joint asset rather than a source of conflict. The By-3 delegates swirled in complex patterns, their gases mixing in what the humans had learned to recognize as serious consideration. The Zarkax group's crystalline structures aligned in geometric formations indicating deep analysis. 25 minutes to impact. The AI updated. Kaya brought up the final element of their presentation, a draft cooperation agreement they'd prepared. We've outlined a basic framework for joint administration of the sector. Both species would maintain their current claims while sharing access to the enhanced navigation network. The chamber filled with the subtle resonances of rapid communication between the delegates. Sarah held her breath, watching the timer tick down. They needed a decision before the solar flare hit, or the opportunity might be lost in the aftermath of the crisis. Your species, the By-3 senior advisors' thoughts rippled through their minds, sees patterns we have missed for decades, and moves with a speed we find both disturbing and admirable. The Zarkax representative added, their crystalline form glowing with new intensity. The delegates moved closer to the display, their forms intermingling in what the humans hoped was a positive sign. Sometimes, Sarah reflected, the best way to break a deadlock was to show people a glimpse of what they could achieve together. Now they just had to hope that glimpse was enough, and that they had time to seal the agreement before the solar flare changed everything. The first tremor caught everyone by surprise. The Academy's artificial gravity fluctuated as the leading edge of the solar flare arrived ahead of schedule. Marcus was the first to react, his Earth-trained reflexes allowing him to stabilize Azarkak's advisor before their crystalline form could shatter against the chamber wall. Impact in 15 minutes. Early arrival detected, the AI announced, its calm voice a stark contrast to the growing chaos. The calculations were wrong, Sarah called out, her fingers flying across the emergency controls. The flare picked up speed in the outer system. We need to adjust the evacuation corridors now. The chamber's lighting shifted to emergency red as more gravitational waves rippled through the station. The Bay3 delegates' gaseous forms wavered dangerously as atmospheric controls struggled to compensate. Kaya rushed to the environmental control panel. The primary stabilizers are failing. The Bay3 will dissipate if we lose containment. Her hands moved with practiced precision, rerouting power from non-essential systems. Use the Zarkak's resonance patterns, Marcus shouted, still helping stabilize the crystalline delegates. Their natural frequency can reinforce the atmospheric barriers. Sarah understood immediately. Honorable Zarkak's delegates, we need your help. Can you align your crystalline structures to create a stabilization matrix? The Zarkak's representatives, seeing the Bay3's predicament, arranged themselves into a precise geometric pattern. Their surfaces began to vibrate at specific frequencies, creating zones of stability in the turbulent chamber. It's working, Kaya announced, watching the atmospheric readings stabilize. The combined resonance is actually stronger than our artificial containment fields. Another gravity wave struck the station. Warning signals blared as the main power grid fluctuated. The holographic displays flickered, threatening to fail entirely. Marcus, the backup generators, Sarah ordered, her voice steady despite the crisis. We can't lose those evacuation coordinates. He nodded, making his way through the destabilized gravity field with the sure-footed grace of someone born on a high-gravity world. The Bay3 and Zarkak's delegates watched in amazement as he moved with certainty while their own forms struggled against the fluctuations. Main power rerouted through secondary systems, Marcus reported moments later. Holographic integrity at 60%. Enough to maintain essential displays. The chamber's screen showed the ongoing evacuation, now complicated by the flare's early arrival. Ships of both species streamed through the modified corridors, using the combined navigation system to stay ahead of the approaching radiation wave. Look at the efficiency, one of the Bay3 advisors noted, their gaseous form stable within the Zarkak's resonance field. Even with the disruption, ships using both our navigation methods are maintaining optimal speed. Sarah highlighted a particular section of the display. The crystal markers are actually growing stronger under stress, creating more stable reference points. And the gravitational currents are automatically adjusting to compensate for the solar interference. Another tremor shook the chamber, but this time both species were ready. The Zarkaks maintained their stabilization matrix, while the Bay3 used their gaseous nature to absorb and dissipate the gravitational shockwaves. 9 minutes to full impact. The AI updated. Evacuation progress at 98% complete. Kaya monitored the cooperation between the two species with growing admiration. You're both adapting to each other's methods instinctively now. This is exactly what we saw in the simulation. Your technologies naturally enhance each other. The delegates, still maintaining their emergency measures, began to communicate rapidly between themselves. The humans continued their work, their quick reactions and decisive movements providing a stark contrast to the deliberately paced species around them. Sometimes, Marcus said, making another gravity adjustment, the best way to prove a theory is to test it under fire. Sarah nodded, watching as the two species worked together with unprecedented synchronization. The crisis had forced them to move past centuries of careful deliberation into direct action, and they were discovering they were quite capable of it. The real test was still approaching, but they had already proven more than they'd hoped. Now they just had to survive the next 9 minutes. The solar flare's peak intensity washed over the Academy in waves of charged particles, but inside the central chamber, an unprecedented scene unfolded. The Bathory and Zarkax delegates maintained their cooperative stance, their combined efforts keeping the chamber stable despite the raging storm outside. Final evacuation ships clearing the danger zone, Kaya reported, her fingers dancing across the holographic controls. All vessels accounted for. No casualties. Sarah watched as the last readings came in, confirming their emergency measures had worked perfectly. The combined navigation system actually improved under stress. The crystal markers are showing a 12% increase in stability. And the gravitational currents have self-adjusted, Marcus added, studying the data streams. They're now flowing more efficiently than our original calculations predicted. The Bathory senior advisor's gaseous form shimmered with what the humans had learned to recognize as excitement. Our ships report unprecedented precision in their emergency maneuvers. The Zarkax markers provided perfect reference points even during the worst of the disruption. Indeed, the crystalline lead delegate responded, their facets gleaming. And the Bathory currents protected our markers from solar degradation. The resonance patterns are stronger than ever. Sarah stepped forward, knowing this was their crucial moment. Honorable delegates, what you've achieved here goes beyond emergency cooperation. You've created something entirely new. The main display shifted to show their proposed permanent solution. The disputed asteroid belt appeared in perfect detail, now overlaid with a complex network of integrated navigation systems. A joint monitoring station here, Kaya explained, highlighting a stable asteroid at the belt's center. Staffed by both species, it would coordinate all ship movements through the enhanced corridors. Marcus brought up the efficiency projections. Based on today's data, ships using the combined system could reduce their travel time by 43%, while using 37% less energy. The delegates studied the proposal with intense focus. The humans waited, knowing that pushing too hard could trigger a return to their traditional lengthy deliberation processes. This proposal, the Bathory advisor began, would require significant changes to our operational protocols. Change can be difficult, Sarah acknowledged, but you've already proven you can adapt when necessary. Why not build on that success? The Zarkax representative's crystalline structure shifted into a pattern indicating deep consideration. Our species values stability and careful planning. Yet today, rapid action saved lives and resources. Perhaps, another Bathory delegate suggested, their form swirling thoughtfully. There is wisdom in learning from our younger allies. Their quick thinking provided solutions we might never have considered. Kaya highlighted another aspect of their proposal. The joint station would preserve both species' traditional methods while creating opportunities for new developments. Your technologies work better together than apart. Imagine what you might discover with proper coordination. The chamber filled with the subtle resonances of rapid communication between the delegates. The humans observed with carefully contained optimism as the two species engaged in their fastest negotiation session in recorded history. We accept the basic framework, the Bathory senior advisor announced, their gaseous form rippling with purpose. As do we, the Zarkax leader added, their crystalline surface glowing with increased intensity. Though details will need to be refined. Sarah nodded, trying to hide her relief. Of course, we've prepared draft protocols that respect both species' requirements while implementing the new system. Marcus pulled up the technical specifications they'd developed. The station can be operational within one standard cycle. We suggest beginning with the most stable sections of the navigation network and expanding gradually. A measured approach, the Zarkax approved, yet not unnecessarily delayed. The best of both worlds, Kaya added softly, just like the navigation system itself. The delegates began discussing implementation details with unprecedented speed. The humans exchanged quiet smiles, knowing they had just witnessed the beginning of a fundamental shift in how these ancient species approached cooperation. Sometimes, Sarah reflected, the most powerful traditions were the new ones you created together. Sarah stood with her fellow cadets before the Academy's full assembly, their environment suits polished to perfection. The chamber sparkled with the combined presence of crystalline Zarkax and swirling Bathri officials, while delegates from a dozen other species watched with intense interest. Final implementation complete, Marcus reported, bringing up the latest data from the asteroid belt. The joint monitoring station is operating at 100% efficiency. The main display showed the transformed sector. Ships from both species moved smoothly through the enhanced navigation corridors, their paths weaving together in an elegant dance of cooperation. Travel times have decreased by 45%. Kaya added, highlighting the efficiency metrics. Energy consumption is down 39%, even better than our initial projections. Senior diplomat Selfar floated forward, their luminescent form glowing with approval. In 47 minutes, you resolved a conflict that persisted for 10 years. But more importantly, you've introduced something entirely new to our diplomatic protocols. The Bathri senior advisor's gaseous form swirled in agreement. We have learned that sometimes the swiftest current reaches the destination first. Our species will be implementing accelerated decision protocols for certain categories of problems. And we, the Zarkax representative added, their crystalline surface refracting light in complex patterns, have discovered that stability need not always require lengthy deliberation. Adaptation can strengthen our core structures. Sarah stepped forward, her voice clear and confident. The success belongs to both your species. You proved capable of rapid cooperation when circumstances required it. We merely helped identify the opportunity. Indeed, Zelthar responded, their thoughts resonating through the chamber. And that is why the Academy Board has reached a historic decision. We are creating a new division, the Crisis Response and Innovation Corps. Marcus straightened, his eyes widening slightly. Kaya's fingers paused over her data panel. Sarah held her breath. Both the Bathri and Zarkax councils have requested permanent human advisors. Telthar continued. Your unique perspectives and ability to identify unexpected solutions have proven invaluable. Therefore, upon your graduation, you will become the founding members of this new course. The chamber filled with the subtle harmonics of approval from the assembled delegates. The humans exchanged glances, their expressions professional but their eyes shining with pride. Furthermore, the Bathri advisor announced, the joint navigation system will serve as a model for future cooperation between our species. Already, we have identified 3 other sectors where similar integration could prove beneficial. The Zarkax representative's crystal facets pulsed with agreement. Our specialists are also studying how this approach might be applied to other technological exchanges. The possibilities appear numerous. Cadets, Selfar addressed them directly. You have demonstrated that sometimes the most effective solution is not the most traditional one. Your methods will be studied and incorporated into the Academy's training programs. Sarah nodded respectfully. We look forward to helping establish the new course, Senior Diplomat. Though we hope our future solutions won't require quite so much temporal pressure. A ripple of harmonic amusement passed through the chamber, the closest thing to laughter that most of these species could produce. Speaking of time, Marcus added with a slight smile, the entire resolution, from our first analysis to final implementation, took exactly 47 minutes and 23 seconds. Perhaps we should work on improving our efficiency. This time, the harmonic response was stronger, even the traditionally reserved Zarkax joining in the moment of levity. As the ceremony concluded, Sarah watched ships continuing their synchronized dance through the transformed asteroid belt. Sometimes the best solutions came from seeing old problems through new eyes, or in this case, through the eyes of species who measured time in centuries, learning from those who counted it in minutes. Ready for our next assignment? Kaya asked quietly as they prepared to leave the chamber. Sarah smiled, thinking of all the possibilities ahead. Always. though maybe next time we can solve it in 46 minutes. The three humans shared a knowing look as they stepped forward into their new roles. They had proven that being Deathworlders wasn't just about physical capabilities. It was about bringing new perspectives to ancient problems. And sometimes, that made all the difference in the galaxy.